Welcome, welcome. It's not quite 8 o'clock. Hello, everybody. We've got a lot of questions tonight, but I think it's because I'm pushing all the questions that come in to this webcast. But we've got a lot of good questions, so we're going to get started. And then as you all come in, because I know there's a little bit of a delay, we'll just say hi. We'll stop and say hi in a little bit. Hi, Crowley, Texas. All over. So, all right, so I'm going to get started because, like I said, we got a lot of questions, and then we'll come back if we need to. Okay? All right, the good news is you can hear me, you can see me. Yes? So I have so many images tonight, and I'm not sure I know how to do this, but we're just going to try our darndest. Okay, so we're going to start with, and I'm not going to say who they're from because it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is a lady who's working on pattern 923, and that's Eva's cardigan. 923 is Eva's cardigan. So I'm going to show the cardigan. Hi, everybody. There we go. Oklahoma. All over. Hi, everybody. I'm going to show this cardigan, which is really cute. Love the knit. Love everything about it. And she's concerned about this area right in through here. Okay, so typically if you went in to fix that area, there's a princess seam right there, and you'd take it out of the princess seam. So don't take it out of the princess seam. You can see I drew a line, and that line is actually on the bodice front. So you're going to take it out of the bodice front. It's about 1 inch, tapered to nothing at the bust. It follows the princess seam, but don't take it out of the princess seam. And the reason why is because this seam right here, this section is smaller than this section. It'll take it out of proportion. So in the front, take about 1 inch, taper it to nothing. That'll clean all this up right here. And in the back, do the same thing. Take about 1 inch and taper to nothing. It'll taper higher in the back than it does in the front because the back is a shoulder blade and the shoulder blades are higher than the bust. Okay? So then the other question she had was concerning this extra fabric right in here. So that is very typical of a bust dart, of the cup. That is symptomatic, whenever you have it, of a cup size that is not being large enough. Now, she did say in here what size cup size, what cup size she used. She didn't tell me. But when you're watching, you need to go to the next cup size up. If you used a B, go to a C. If you used a C, go to a D. If you used a D, literally take a dart in the tissue. The tissue will still lay flat. This amount right here, you'll take it out of the back as well and taper to nothing, and it will work and the side seam will match. Okay, easy enough. All right, now I'm going to keep going unless I hear a question from you, okay? I guess you're saying those people don't matter that send in the questions. I didn't say that. Did I say that somehow? Everyone from Melbourne. Hey, Melbourne, I'm coming to Melbourne. Yeah, I love this cardigan too. This cardigan is very, very nice. It's very nice, and it fits very well. You might have a little tweak like this or where she's got it, and that's why I wanted to address these, because I think that that is common. Okay, so the next question is, I'm going to show you another picture, and she wants to know how to fix the sleeve. So number one, the sleeve is just too big. It's just too big. You're not going to have all these folds on a sleeve that fits correctly. So this is a time when you think about your templates. So you want it, like, let's say if she's using a size 4, but she needs a size 2 sleeve. Then you use a size 2 sleeve and 2 armhole, and that way you can reduce the size of the sleeve here. And so very easy to do. All right, now when you guys ask questions here, I'll go back to these because I know there's a little bit of delay. So let's go back to this one. You ask, what about the tightness of the sleeve? I don't know, that didn't bother me. It's a knit. Keep in mind it's a knit. So that would, it's kind of up to her. You know, now that she sees everybody's thinking it's tight, she'll probably do something about it, but it's comfort level. You know, I didn't think it was that big a deal, but that's a personal problem. And she didn't ask about that per se, so I didn't look for anything that she asked for. Okay? Okay. Hey, California. Okay, so going back to this one, the sleeve is too large. That's why you're getting all these folds. Now, I circled this up here because I wanted you to see that when you're doing a muslin and you have those large seam allowances, if you split those seam allowances open like that, they'll cause problems. So if you're going to split them open like that, clip the sides of them to release that seam so that it doesn't get caught in the opposing seam. Okay? Okay, she said, I'm not going to name names because that doesn't matter, and that's something we will all learn from that explanation. Yeah, no, of course the questions matter. I wouldn't be here. I've spent hours on answering these questions, so I wouldn't be here if the questions didn't matter. You guys got to give me the benefit of the doubt. If you hear something that, you know, I'm here to help. All right, let's keep it in that spirit, please. Okay. Hi, Peggy. I would like to clarify the armhole templates. Let's say a 19-inch opening. Let's say I like a 19-inch opening. And Dawn's asking the question. Dawn, this is a perfect example of that. This is when I would use an armhole template. So let's say I like a 19-inch opening. Before I cut them out, do I add the 3-inch seam allowance times 2? No, the templates have a seam allowance incorporated in the template. The seam allowance is incorporated into that template. So if you like a 19-inch opening, you're going to have to measure the armhole without the seam allowance. You're going to have to measure those templates without the seam allowance. Okay? Okay. All right, so in this case, the reason this fold is happening like this is because the sleeve is too large. And so I would say to you, go down in sleeve size, not body size. Go down in sleeve size, and then use the armhole that goes with that sleeve size and draw the armhole on. And typically, Dawn, I'm just going to come back and say to you that you want to really, you know, if you like a 19-inch armhole, a 19-inch armhole might not like you. And when I say that, what I mean is if you have a smaller arm, that will work. But if you have a larger arm, you may not be able to get the sleeve you like into a 19-inch armhole. That's all. You know, you may. I'm not saying, you know, just be aware of that. Okay? And then again, when you guys split open these seams, I've seen this before, where I've gone into a muslin and had to kind of pop those seams open because it pulls too bad. So be aware that too large a seam right there is not going to work. Okay? Okay. Okay, next one. I'm making... Let's see, this is a lady who'd been to a fitting class. She said, I fitted 3,200 for me, and she loved it. But now she's making 3,218 because she's using a stretch woven, which many of you have asked me in the last week for whatever reason. If I'm making 3,200, can I just do 3,200 in a stretch woven? And my response is no, because the leg will feel too big. The leg in a woven and the leg in a stretch woven is going to be two different animals. And so you don't want to take, it's like, can you make 600 classic blouse in a knit? You can, yes, but it's going to feel too big, it's going to be too big. So you've got to go down in size. The problem is with a pant, if you go down in size, it won't go around your hip. So when I did a stretch woven pant, 3218, I narrowed the leg, not necessarily the body. So that's why you have different pants patterns, is for the different fabrics that they generate from. Okay, so in this particular case, whoops, sorry. This is the, oh, I'm off, you guys. Sorry. Hang on. Okay, this is the alteration she's talking about that she did, or that I did. I did this on her 3,200. The question is, when she starts her 3,218, would she do this adjustment? The answer is yes. I would absolutely do anything I did on a woven, I would do on a knit or a stretch woven, either way, to start the process. It wouldn't, you know, almost as a precautionary tale, I would do that. Okay? Yeah, no, I love these Q&As too, so I hear you. Got my decaf coffee with cream. This is my chillin' time. Good deal. Welcome here. no, you guys, I love being here, but I don't want you to take anything I say offensively. If it feels offensive, then just know it's not meant to be that way. So I might have, maybe you only heard part of it, or maybe I said it wrong. You know, it's been a long day. But I don't mean anything to be offensive. I like you guys, okay, just for the record. Okay. All right, so this is the alteration I did, and this is from, and when you do this alteration from the inseam to the side seam, it has to be done in the front and in the back. So oftentimes you do it in the back, and what it does is it snugs the pant up closer to the body, but anytime you do it in the back, it has to be done in the front, otherwise the inseams won't align. Okay. Next question. We'll take this one off. And you guys, I'm learning to do these images. So this whole thing is still new to me. I want Lana's jeans to come up to my waist. Lana's jeans are 3,300, just for the record. Do I just add to the top pieces? No, you do not. So let's look at this. I drew this out. This is Lana's jeans. Sorry, let me get to Lana's jeans. Okay, so when you are adding, we like you too, Betty. Thanks. Thank you very much. I love the way you explain some mistakes. Yeah, good. We're all on the same page. Okay, when you add to jeans, you want to add in a different place in the front than you do in the back. So in the front, you add below the pockets. In the back, you add below the yoke. So if you add to the yoke, you make the yoke kind of wide, and it will look funky style-wise. So it's not going to have a nice look to it. So I drew the red line so that you could see if you want the jeans to come up higher on you, where to add for that case. However, there's a catch-22 when you do this, okay? And this is question number 2 follows. She says, you had me put darts in the back yoke to get Lana's jeans to fit right, but now the yoke pieces are curved. I want the yoke pieces to be straight, okay, like they are in ready-to-wear. How do I do that? So that's the catch-22 right there. She's kind of hearing what it is. If you take the jean and try to take it all the way to your waist, you are curved. You're female. Most females are very curved. So the yoke, and you can see that yoke right here. Can you guys see my mouse? I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. But anyway, you can see where that yoke is curved, because in the yoke is where the darts are built in. So you can't take a pant going from the hip all the way to the waist, where you get a lot less circumference, you're curved. You can't do that without the yoke being curved. If you like the yoke to be more square, like you're saying it, or straight, I guess is what you're asking, you should wear the pant lower on your hip. So just by virtue of taking it up higher, you have to have the curves, you have to have darts. Basically, the curves are the darts. You have to have those. Without those, you just can't do that. You can't take it all out of the side seam, because if you take it all out of the side seam, it's just it becomes too bias. And on jeans, there's no darts. There's no other way to do it. So it all has to come out of the side seams and the yokes in the back. So these 2 questions, I thought it was a really good question, because you can't have everything you want, if that's fair. If you want it to the waist, then the yoke line has to be more curved. If you want a straight yoke, you have to lower the pant. And actually, you guys, just FYI, you will look better with a jean that is worn lower on your body. Jeans don't necessarily look good going to all the way to your waist. They'll look better on a high hip. You'll look thinner. You'll look younger. Your body will look straighter. Therefore, that's why you look thinner. So I would not try to go to the waist. I would not add these lines like I've shown you how to do. I've shown you how to do them because you want them. And so I'm going to show you how to do them. But my suggestion would be I wouldn't. I would leave it where it is. Okay, hope that helps. Okay. And again, if you guys have any follow-up questions from the ones I've done, just ask, and then I'll go back to that photo. Okay? Okay. I'm thinking I missed one. Let me just make sure I didn't, because I might just... Yeah, I'm sure it's coming up. Okay. Yeah, it's coming up. Okay. Yeah, it does make, I think it makes a lot of sense when we know answers, that's for sure, which is exactly why I do these. We just have to have more information, that's all. Okay, when you lengthen the blouse 5 inches, do you also lengthen the waist dart? Okay, now think about this. And if you think about this, y'all will know the answer. The waist is not changing. Where the waist darts end have nothing to do with the length of the blouse. So, for instance, the length of waist darts in a dress are not longer than a blouse. So no, you would not lengthen the waist darts. The waist darts begin basically around the shoulder blade. They go through the waist and they taper to nothing, you know, high hip. And so no matter how long the dress or the blouse or whatever it is, you would not lengthen darts or shorten them unless you just wanted them to be shorter for a style reason. Okay, so the answer, should you lengthen the waist darts? The answer is no. Okay? I've seen a designer take out excess below the butt all the way across the back of the pant without going to nothing at the side seam and then adding length at the bottom. No, you can't do that. You've seen a designer do that? Okay, here, you got to think about this, okay? And then I'll give you the logic and then you guys can answer this for yourself. First off, you have to, this is why LCD is so critical and so important. L, C, and D. You have to, whenever you diagnose a problem, you have to put it into one of those categories. So for instance, if she's taking, you called it excess, that excess has to be a dart, which is depth, or it has to be a length, which is L. It can't be circumference. Is that fair? It has to either be L or depth. If she's taking it out all the way across, then she's not fixing anything because she's just taking away length. Length isn't the problem. Depth is the problem. If she's adding it back at the bottom, she's just adding length at the bottom, and that won't fix the problem where it is. So there's no way something like that can work. I mean, and I don't mean to criticize anybody out there who's doing it. I'm just saying to you, that's not possible. It's a depth issue. Depth issues have to be solved with darts. And the reason you know it's a depth issue is because you get wrinkling at the inseam right under your butt, but you don't have it at the side seam. So that's how you know the fabric is telling you, hey, man, I got depth issues. I need a dart. Help me, give me a dart. It's telling you that. We just sometimes don't know how to read the fabric and know what's going on. Okay? You look great in the orange velvet. Thanks. Do you still have that velvet? Yeah, it is. It's online. You know, I appreciate that, you guys. I had my colors done, and I've never worn orange in my whole life. I've never worn orange, but this new color thing said I could wear orange. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try it. So I did, and I do like it. But I wondered if it was just me or if it was. But I do like it. And I know you have to wear certain colors of orange, but thank you. I like it too. I agree. I was just going to say how great that, oh, thanks you guys. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, Janet, about the whole L and length and depth, the two completely different issues. And that, I don't want to push the classes so much, but I'm going to push the classes. The Science of Fit, that online class we're doing, that's critical. That's what I'm going to do, is clearly separate those issues for you so that you'll see them right away. If you take out excess at back of pant at center interleg, do you have to at the front? Yes, you do. Yes, that's that diagram I showed where it has a dart. And whenever you dart a seam, whenever you dart any seam, you have to take out an accompanying seam. In the very beginning when we looked at Eva's cardigan, and I said take out a dart at the bodice front, you have to take a dart in the bodice back and taper to nothing as well. Typically, a lot of times that will show up as a sway back if you don't fix it. So whenever you take a dart, you have to look to the accompanying seam or the companion seam that it goes to fix. Okay? Thank you, you guys. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's go to the next question. I'm making 921 Valentino's unlined jacket. So far, very impressed with the accuracy of the tissue fit I did for size 4. I only have to shorten the sleeve length by 1 inch. My question is, what is the lengthwise fold on the jacket? My question is, what is the lengthwise fold on the front of the jacket, piece 4? Stability, the folded part won't show, confused. Okay, so I'm going to show you this picture. I took a close-up. This is 921. This is a jacket I made a little bit ago. This is the jacket you're talking about. Okay. So what she's talking about is this fold right in here. The way this is created, there's a fold right there. Hey, somebody tell me if you can see my mouse. Can you see my mouse on this picture? Because I'm using it and I don't know if you can actually see it or not. If you can't see it, I'm going to have to do this another way. But let me know if you can see it and then I can, you know, I won't worry about it. But anyway, so this is what folds back, and she's right, you don't see it, but what it gives is it gives a texture, it gives layers, and I just loved it. So I preserved it exactly as it is. You can see, oh, you can't see the mouse, shoot. All right, well, I'll have to, you know, I bet there's a tool on here, so I'll figure that out later. I'll get my kids to help me. Okay, thanks you guys. No mouse. All right, so right at the top though, by the button, see that folded, see how that seam that goes along to the left of the buttonhole? All right, got it, you guys. The left of the buttonhole. The left of the button, I'm sorry, the left of the button. To the left of the button is a fold, and that is created by the front piece folding back and then coming back out again. There's a front facing that sews to the right of that button. Okay, so the purpose of that is texture and the way that looks, and I just loved that, the way that looked. Well, as you're looking at the picture, so with the button, go to the left of the button. So it's not my left or your left, it's the left of the picture. So go to the left of the button and you'll see the fold that's, the pattern folds. When you're creating that part of the jacket, and then the piece that's on the right of the button, as you're looking at it, that's a seam. There's a seam there and the front facing comes in right there. Okay? Yeah, my left and your left are the same. Forget yours and mine, just as you're looking at the photo. All right, so that is the reason. It's not stability. It's not anything other than simply design. And so, you know, the fold goes back, the facing wraps around, and it's really, really nice. If you take out the inner leg at the top, how far up do you start? And would that shorten the crotch? No, let me go back to that picture, Janet. You're struggling with that. So hang on, and let me go back to that for a second. Everybody got this? I'm going to close this up. Let me figure out what picture that was, and go back in my notes. I numbered them accordingly. It is, okay, here's the picture I showed, and you're going to want to look at this. This is where the dart is. It doesn't affect the crotch at all. It affects the inseam, and it changes the angle of the leg on the pant. So what's wrong is the angle that's dropped down is not correct for your body. So you start at the top of the inseam. It doesn't shorten the crotch, it shortens the inseam. Then you do the front as well. So you do the back to fix, because the back has more depth. And so it's likely that you need a little dart there at the very top of the inseam, which is why I drew it. Because the body is changing so quickly, the fabric cannot change that fast. So it needs a little bit of our help to change so quickly, and that's why these darts, they're internal darts. That's why the darts are so valuable, because they help the fabric change directions much more quickly than what it can do on its own, which is what darts are all about. Okay? All right, so we're going to go to the next question, if you've got that, and I'll give you a little bit of time to kind of absorb that. Okay, that's Valentino's jacket. That's number 921 that we were talking about. Okay, so I'm going to show a photo. And the picture was, what patterns could she use to make this garment? And so what I did is I wrote the pattern numbers on what I would recommend. I would use 1500 for the jacket, and then I would use 4222 for the fit and flare dress. Now, keep in mind that that's a V-neck on the dress. You could make it a V-neck. The fit and flare is not a V-neck. It is a rounded neck, but you all know how to make a V-neck. You could either use the templates that we gave you to make a V-neck, or that we have, that we sell, or you could use another pattern, either way. Or you could use your French curve and just make a V-neck. The fullness there at the skirt is a little lower, and all you have to do is add to the top and take off the panels. But very simple to do and really cute. It's a really cute. In fact, I was gonna, well, I won't tell you that. Anyway, it's a great little dress. Great little dress. Very, very popular right now. Okay, so that's just a pattern question. Thank you. Sorry, one more question. Don't be sorry. How far down the leg do you start the dart? So I purposely drew it. Let's go back to that. When I draw these pictures, you guys, I really draw them very specifically for a reason. I'm right at the very top. You don't, see, the grain line is perpendicular to the crotch line. So if you go too far down, you'll ruin the crotch line. You'll ruin the grain line. You have to be at the very top of the inseam so that it doesn't impact the grain line. Otherwise, you have to redraw the grain line. I mean, it's not major surgery, but you do have to redraw the grain line. There's no reason to do that. So you want to be all the way up at the top of that inseam, at the very top, which is why I drew it at the very top. Okay? But good question and good clarification. Okay. Okay, this is a good question. I thought this was a really good question. I have a question about picking a pattern size when style is involved. First off, style is always involved in a pattern. It's always involved in a pattern. Okay? So you need to understand that style is always involved in a pattern. So she said, what is the difference of fit versus style? It's called personality. And so let me back up and explain that. The whole reason why it's critical, why we have finished garment measurements, is so that you can pick. You have to know what you like. And I know I've been harping on this for so many years. I feel bad because I wish I could come up with a way to give you solutions to this problem, but there's not. You have to come up with these solutions on your own. You have to measure your t-shirts and find out how many inches. You have to measure your blouses and find out how many inches you like. You don't need to know your bust size. And this has been a big problem because it's been hammered into your head of 60 years or 50 years or 20 years, however old you are. It's been hammered into your head for all of those years. Measure your bust, measure your bust, measure your bust. You don't need to know your bust. You don't need to know your hips. You don't need to know that stuff. What you need to do is measure your clothing at the bust line, at the waistline, at the hip line of those garments, because you need to know what you like. You don't need to know what you are, because you don't need to know fit versus style. All you need to know is style. The style of the fitted garment, that's okay if it is, but if I have a 38-inch bust, maybe I'm going to wear my t-shirts at 36. I'll learn that by measuring my t-shirts. But I'm never going to learn that by measuring my bust and picking out a size. It's a complete waste of time. And unfortunately, it's just been taught to us since day one, and it's erroneous. It's false. So stop measuring you, start measuring your garments, and then make that chart. If you go back to our website, we have the FAQs and we have that chart, that measurement chart. I always call it the Brett chart, but it's a measurement chart. And if you'll write down things you like, then let's go back to that jean jacket, for instance. She wouldn't have made up a sleeve that was too big if she knew what size sleeve she liked, because all she had to do was measure the pattern, and she would already see that the sleeves were too big for the body that worked for her. So it actually, people say to me, oh, you know, I don't have time, I don't take the time. It'll actually save you time. And I know, I get it, because you know, there's things I do that take me time, or I say, I don't want to do that. It just takes you time. But it will save you time. Janet, you're welcome, sweetie. Okay, just like measuring a sweater you like and knit it that size. Yes, thank you, Maria. Of course, of course, of course. It has everything to do with the fabric. So we need to be measuring our style and forget the rest. Okay? I love Brett's chart. Yes, it's a sign of disobedience, just so that you all know. But I know, even if Brett was sitting here, I'd tease him like crazy about it. He knows. I give him a hard time all the time. It's a great sign of disobedience, but it's a great example of when it's really good when your children are disobedient because they're passionate about helping. And he was passionate about helping you guys. And it wasn't that I didn't want to. I just felt like You could do it on your own, and you didn't need us. But he didn't he didn't agree, and he took off and made the chart on his own. So thank you, Brett. Okay, so I hope that helps. I know it's probably sometimes not the answer you want to hear, but it's the right answer. Okay. She said, one of the ways I learn your concepts the best is seeing you visually draw the adjustments on the pattern pieces. I agree with that. And that's why I think these Q&As are very positive, because it gives me a time to take in your questions. You know, I spent, I don't know, 2-3 hours on these, mapping them out, drawing them out, sectioning them out, so that I could get them across to you as clearly as possible. And I really do believe that visual is an important thing. And so when I'm on a webcast, and then like we used to do those Q&As, I really felt like they were just almost like a waste of time, because I couldn't respond to them appropriately. So I do believe we did this format because it's much better, it's much more clear, and I can diagram them. Okay, so she has a question. The question she had is refining the French curve and the adjusting of the side seam. She has a straight hip, and our patterns are made for a more curved hip. So I want to show you these. I'm going to show you this. And what I did, this is a new pattern that I'm making for fall. But I laid the French curve down, and the French curve, because the French curve is the same on all of our patterns, okay? He understood what we need. Yeah, more so than I did. I guess he was listening a little better than I was. But he's criticized me for not listening, so that's fair. Just on love your jacket. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it, you guys. Thank you. Okay, so this is the side seam of a pant. And so what I've shown you is how it follows the shape of the French curve. I'm going to try to move that over a little bit. That's not going to work. But anyway. No, that's not. Okay. Anyway, there you have it. You see that 17 is the number of the French curve at the top, and 8, you go 9 inches down roughly. Okay. And that's where the hip line comes in. Okay. So the reason I want to show that is the top of the French curve. It's the curved part of females, and most of us it's not a weight thing, it's a DNA thing. Most women are on that section. However, there are women who are on this section, and you can see that we're now seeing the narrow end, the straight end of the French curve, and you can see where 1 now is at the waist and 9 is at the hip line. Same 8 inches. Okay? And those 8 inches now, you can see all that extra. Now, when you do that 4 times on both sides of the pant, you know, the front, the back, the front, the back, it will make you feel kind of like you have, you know, bloomers on. So you must know and find out where you are on the curve. And you can do that by laying that on your clothing. You can just take the French curve and literally put it right onto your pants that you wear. You don't need to do a pattern. You don't need to make a muslin. You can literally lay your pants down, put the French curve on, and you can see it's either the straight end here, or it's the curved end. You can see the head of the curve up here, and it's on this end. All women are on one end or another. Period. All right? Okay. Janet, what if the front of my pants at the crotch fits okay and it's just the back that has too much extra fabric? Oh, that's a great question, Janet. And I get that actually a lot. The front of the pants actually don't fit well. You just don't see them and detect them as a problem. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I promise you, you fix the back, carry it around to the front, same amount of the inseam, taper it to nothing, and you will say, oh my gosh, they fit so much better. I promise. I've been doing this how many years? I don't know. A long time. And without reserve, I can assure you, that's why when I fit, I always start in the back of the pant, because the back of the pant has more change faster than the front of the body does. But once you change the back and then you follow it with the front, you'll say, oh my gosh, that looks so much better. Okay, hopefully that helps on the French curve and that alignment of the top and the bottom. It's a big issue. You got to know where you are. You've told us many times that dress patterns can be shortened to be a top, and a top can be lengthened to be a dress. I have. If I remember correctly, you've shortened, lengthened them from the hem by folding the patterns up and cutting. When turning up from the bottom, should we be concerned that the pattern piece stays on the grain line, or that the length is equally shortened, lengthened on both sides of the piece? Somewhat, but keep in mind the grain, like if you're doing a dress and you're shortening it to be a top, center front is what's on grain. Or if it's a princess, you want to follow those grain lines down. Okay? And so follow those grain lines down wherever they are. And if you're taking them and making the garment shorter, the grain lines on the original pieces are all you need to worry about. It seems that your pattern piece's sides can change on pieces that are curved like a princess seam piece. It can, but you should be, let's use a princess seam as an example. And let's say I'm taking 4218, which is a princess seam knit dress, and I'm going to make a top out of it. When I'm shortening the same number of inches, if it's 10 inches, for instance, on one side of the pattern than the other side of the pattern, even if that means the hem is not straight, because the hem wasn't straight at the bottom because the differences took up through the garment. So 10 inches on both sides, 10, 10, 10, 10. Don't just fold it up and say that's close. Take the exact same number off each piece so that the shaping of the piece is exactly the same. Okay? It seems that the pattern piece sides can change. Yes, you have to take the same example off of each piece. Okay? Same on both sides of the piece. On all pieces, you have to take off the same amount. Okay, question. Can I make a pretty openish weave knit fabric that doesn't have very good recovery? No. No, you can't. If your fabric doesn't have recovery, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. You cannot sew in recovery. You know, I've seen women say to me, oh, you know, I'm going to put a stabilizer at the shoulder. Well, what about the neckline? What about the side seams? What about the middle of it? I mean, you can't stabilize a fabric. If a fabric isn't stable, throw it away. If you guys get a fabric from me that doesn't hold its shape, you need to let me know. Because you know, and sometimes we pick up fabric that's really low price. I can take our fabrics and mark them really low, but they're still stable. They're still good fabrics, if that makes sense. But there are times where it's difficult to know if a fabric is good quality because of where you're buying it from. And I know that you buy a lot of fabrics, and I know, you know, from other sources. I get that, and that's no big deal because we love the fabric. The only problem is I would never buy fabric from a source that you didn't know, or a source that, you know, you couldn't count on, because you can't tell stability by looking at it. Peggy did that for me in a SPIFFY class I went to take. Oh, I see. You're just commenting on that. I gotcha. Okay. So go back to the fabric. If the fabric isn't stable, if it's stretching out, you're just wasting your time. You're absolutely, it is a waste of your time. I just hate to say that, because I know you all, you know, you'll get into a fabric and you love it and you think, okay, well, how can I fix this fabric? And you can't. You know, you just can't unless you want to, you can't. And there's no unless. You just can't, okay? Could you stand up and show us the jacket? I'd love to see how it looks. Sure. I love my little jacket. Isn't it cute? It's so cute. Anyway, and I won't tell you that I have these really cute little orange jeans that went with it perfectly. Anyway, okay. The other question is fabric characteristics that affect pattern sizing. Besides the weight ounces of fabric, how can you use the stretch percentage to help you decide whether you need to cut a pattern a little larger or smaller? Is there a formula? There's not a formula, but I can know that sizing is circumference, and I know you guys we're past time on this. I want to finish up these questions though. Yeah, I want to finish up these questions. So sizing is circumference. When you are, when you have stretch in a fabric in both directions, that is going to affect sizing, because you have stretch in both directions. So a fabric is going to be more forgiving. And so when you have stretch most of the time in both directions, I will go down a size. I will go down a size because I've got stretch in both directions. So the drape affects it also. But typically, if I've got stretch in both directions, typically, not always, I've got usually a really good drape. So wrapping the fabric around you works. It does work. But keep in mind, if you cut a pattern and it's too large, if you do this, guys, if you just take one-way knits and then two-way knits and just make them both up, you'll see the differences very quickly. It's not difficult. I really think it's just because you're trying to kind of speculate the issue rather than just living it, you know, kind of get an empirical knowledge as to what's going on with it, and I think it'll be easier for you. Oh, thanks, you guys. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Does one-way stretch knit muslin work well? Okay, so we sell a one-way stretch knit muslin. Does it work well for tops with two-way stretch? No. I mean, so keep in mind, again, let's go back to L, C, and D. What do I need a muslin for? I really don't need it for circumference. I could figure out circumference by measuring. I could measure a garment I want, get the stretch. You know, I don't need a muslin for circumference. What I need a muslin for is depth and length. And those don't change in knit muslins. Those don't change in wovens. So what I'm saying to you is I hope you all are hearing this. If I've got a two-way stretch garment and I've got a one-way knit muslin, the size I can figure out by myself. I don't need to make a muslin of that. But if the darting is wrong and if the bust doesn't come where it should, then I need the muslin will tell me that, whether it's one-way, two-way, or whatever. So what I'm trying to do is get you to understand that I'm not making a muslin for circumference or for things I can change after the fact. I'm making a muslin for things I can't change after the fact, which is depth, which is length. Okay, I hope that helps, and I'm not sure that you guys can hear that, but anyway, that's the goal. So other than that, that's why I make muslins for. Okay. Oops, I wasn't going to say names. So there's a blouse that she made, 620. Let's see, about the houndstooth jacket at the beginning. When I alter the back shoulder to match the front, that gives me curvature at the back shoulders. I already have made a rounded back alteration. Nope. Elaine, you're going to two different issues. Should I undo the alteration first, then create the dart from the shoulder down? See how it fits me? Maybe I won't need the rounded back. I would agree that I don't think you probably need a rounded back in that. That princess seam probably gives you enough. And when you increase, when you take the dart and narrow it at the shoulder and taper it down to nothing, go a ways. You know, don't just do a little bit. Go down like 6 inches, 7 inches. Like, it's just a little tiny taper. It shouldn't affect a rounded back. They're two different issues. If you needed rounded back, it's because the collar was sticking straight up when you put the collar on if you made a muslin. I didn't see that, but I didn't see the back of it. So if you look at that, you might try that. What % of stretch do you usually have in the knits you use when first creating your tops pattern? That's an unanswerable question. It's how do I answer this? You know, if we're doing a knit, if we're doing a knit top, then like let's use 195 as an example. Any knit will work for that. It doesn't matter what % it is. Any knit will work. You just have to adjust your size according to the knit you pick. So if you pick a knit that doesn't have a lot of stretch, then you have to make a larger size than if you pick a knit that has a lot of stretch. It has nothing to do with the pattern. It has everything to do with the size that you then select, which is why finished garment measurements are critical. Okay, so it's not about the pattern. It's about what you marry the pattern with and what you do together, if that makes sense. What kind of thread do you use on knits? Do you use a straight stitch? I always use a straight stitch, and I use the threads that I sew. I use the sewing thread is a Gutermann, and the serger threads. That's all I use. The back fits beautifully right now with a rounded back adjustment. Okay, good. Then leave it. Don't change that. But when you go to narrow that shoulder and you go to narrow that back piece, just taper it down long enough that it's just not even going to make a difference. So don't even worry about that. They're not going to interfere with one another. Okay, I sewed the knit sheath dress into a formal. It twisted at the bottom. What happened? You didn't keep it on grain, and somehow those sequins had a grain to them. And because you didn't recognize that, you know, sequins get stitched like in columns, and somehow you got those columns twisted a little bit, and that's why it twisted. Anytime you have a twist, when you go over 40 inches in length, you have, or well, really it's over 20 inches in length, it's a grain problem. You've got to pay attention to that grain. All right, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going to go back because I want to make sure I answer these questions, and we're way over time. But anyway, I told you we did have a lot of questions, but I want to get through them. Okay, so she's making pattern number 623, Sam's blouse. That's a new one. Sam's blouse number 623. And she wants to know, she wants to make the sleeve not as full, so I told her to take it off the bottom of the sleeve. Literally, she could take it off. You can see I've just made the sleeve shorter and tapered it to nothing at the wrist line. This is the original blouse that I copied. Okay, it was from Johnny Was. It was the Iman blouse. And so I used this picture so you could see she just wants more body and less fullness in the sleeve. And you could do that sometimes if you're shorter, just you'd want less fullness because you want less styling. Any of those reasons are okay, but just start at the bottom of the sleeve, take it up, and then taper to nothing at the sleeve. You don't want to taper the sleeve. There's no reason to touch the sleeve, but just go less, 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 less. And it's like a dart. Basically, it's like a dart. If you do a rounded back adjustment, do you have to do a forward shoulder adjustment? No. No, the two are two separate entities. It's like asking me if you have a large bust, do you have to shorten the waist? Those are two different animals. All right, so don't lump them into one category at all. Okay. All right, so I've got one more that I want to make sure I include. Based on your Tuesday evening segment about Craig's blouse, what blouse pattern would you use to make a caftan in the summer heat? And I went and found a bunch of caftans for you guys, and they're all pattern 450. They're all pattern 450. Maybe the exception of the collar, but you could use a collar from 575 if you wanted a collar. I would make it collarless. But they're all 450. 450 is Nancy's blouse. The original was a Tory Burch. It's Tory Burch's classic blouse is number 450. And so that was where 450 came from. And it's an incredible summer caftan. Okay? Okay. Thanks for taking time to answer the question. I'm always hearing something I needed to hear. I do. I think that's why I feel like these are so valuable, you guys, is because I'm answering these questions over and over and over. And I feel like if we just come together and answer everybody's questions, I really do think this forum is going to be very workable, I hope. And it does mean a little patience on your part, because typically if you sent a question in, I'd try to get to it within a day or so. And so like a question comes in tomorrow, I'm going to push it out to the next webcast, which is 2 weeks from tonight. So it takes a little bit of patience on yours, but we're also linking these to where we have like little keywords to where you can go back and find answers. So I'll put in, you know, I don't know, I'll go through and hit highlights from each of these, and then I'll put those in so that you will be able to access or find them at a somewhat, you know, decent amount of time. And I know that's important. Wow, you came up with some nice... Yeah, I know. They're pretty, aren't they? They're really pretty. They're really pretty. They're all over the place, you guys. They're all over. And they are really cool for summer. And you can make them any length you want. I think they're wonderful. I thought it was a great question. You know, I don't think I'd put the horizontal trims. Don't put horizontal trims, you guys. Horizontal trims make you look horizontal. Just do the verticals. And those vertical lines are great vertical lines. And remember Marla, embellishtrims.com or embellish.com, I think she's got great, you know, she's really got great trims. So there's, and you can go to her website. You know, we used her in a previous webcast. But anyway, Was the velvet difficult to work with? No. No, but I'm going to tell you that whenever you're doing a knit and a zipper, a knit and a zipper kind of sometimes give you problems. So what I always do with a knit and a zipper, let me close this out so you can see, is I'll fuse the front. So if you go inside and look inside of the facing in here, there's a little bit of fusing, because what I did is the front edge is curved on 425 Craig's blouse, and so I just laid some fusible in there so that when I went to put the zipper in and did the pleats, there was some stabilization there. Okay, you guys, I love you, you know that. Using the French curve, I never realized this. Thank you. Okay, good. All right, so I'm supposed to have a conference call at 9 o'clock. I thought I'd be way done early. What about the sleeve trim on the caftan? I mean, it's your caftan. You can do what you want, but you don't ever want to create horizontal lines. Not at your hips, which is where your wrists are. It's right across your body. So I just don't think it's a good look. But again, it's your caftan, and if you like the matchy and the way it looks, fine. But if you take your visual and you take that away, you don't even see it. It becomes a non-entity, and I think personally it's a much better look. Okay? All right, you all. So I'm going to say goodnight. Next time, we'll see you. Thanks, you guys. Love you bunches. Bye. Good night. Happy sewing. You know that, right?